Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the CVJ KE-S. So this is their new $10 model and looks like this. Got some big left-right stickers on it, which is pretty cool. You don't see that every day. So this one does sell for about $10, and I think for about $10 what you're expecting is some bassy fun, and that's exactly what this one delivers. It should sound pretty reasonable. It should sound, as you're kind of expecting playback to sound. That's kind of what it does pretty well. If you're expecting tons of details or tons of treble sparkle and air and all those things, you're probably at the wrong price point. So I would stick it with the bassy fun. So, nice color, nice build. It actually comes with these red shells, which have a kind of smallish bore. It's not too wide, not too small though. Not too bad. The cable is reminiscent of a KZ 2-core cable. Very, very similar to these flat 2-core cables, which have become quite popular these days. So we're going to go through this one kind of quickly, and we'll hit this, and then we'll talk about the graph, which we'll go into a slightly more detail. But it's just a basic fun set, and I would call it slightly bright, a little bit forward fun. The problem with bassy fun or V-shaped sets in general is the vocals tend to be a little more recessed. So you bring them a little bit more forward, and that brings a little bit more fun to it, and you don't really notice the vocals are sitting back as much as you would in a typical V-shaped set. So affordable, general, likable tuning. I think they hit that pretty well. I would call it a bright leaning V, and I think to get around this, this forwardness, get around the recess of the V, they brought everything a little bit forward. It's a little bit sharper, maybe slightly brighter. It's just kind of a different slant on your typical V, where the right side of the V is just a hair more forward, and it kind of takes on this little brightish tint to it. Works well at lesser volume levels, and for that same reason. V-shaped sets, they tend to end up turning the volume up slightly just to get the volume a little bit, or to get the mids a little bit more in place. On a set like this, where they're brought a little bit forward, they actually work a little better at lesser volume levels. So that's kind of a big pro there. Cons, it definitely could use a little bit more sub-bass fun. I think they were pretty close, and especially with a little more volume, it actually does work out well. But lesser volume, I think I just noticed it's like, it's supposed to be a $10 fun set. Put some fun there. Early and slightly upper mid-rise, and we'll get to that in a second. But, as I was just talking about, this recessed mids, you can bring them up a little earlier, a little higher, and that brings them a little bit more forward and into focus. And that's really a trade-off here of that recessed V-mids that I was just talking about, and bringing them so forward it messes up the stage. And that's essentially what happened here. High female vocals are a little bit stretched and not as pleasant. And a track like Skrillex Way Back should be a very fun, bassy track. That intro noise doesn't have the height. The stage is a little bit crushed in this case. And her voice sounds a little sharper and detailed and a bit more nasal than natural. So it's just that trade-off. They brought the upper mids a little bit sharper, a little peakier, a little early. And again, like I said, that fixes the recess problem, but introduces other artifacts like that. So it's very in your head, and it sounds more like a $10 set instead of a $20 set. So I would say the KZ DQ-S is very similar, just a bit more sub-bass for the fun, relaxed upper mids for female vocals, and a little more natural. Much better stage, and it actually scales better with amps because you can hear everything in balance. But the mids are more V-like we were just talking about, so it needs a little bit more volume. So when we look at these two side by side on the graph, you can kind of see where KZ got things right, where CVJ was super close, but not quite. But I think they were probably closer than what they knew or what they had thought about. So as I was talking about, CVJ is in the red. The sub-bass is just a hair lower than what would have been super fun. I think the KZ DQ-S actually hit a super fun level. They hit the mid-bass level, and that's fine. It kind of hits a little hard. It doesn't carry through into the depth that you get on DQ-S. So it sounds a little bit shallow on occasion, especially at lower volume it is. So yeah, they could have just given you just a little bit more fun. $10, giving you $10 of fun, that would have been cool. And I was just talking about the upper mids. So the DQ-S takes this sort of relaxed path through the upper mids into lower treble, and CVJ brought it up just a little earlier, a little bit sharper, and that just gives you a little bit more energy in the female vocals, they're very centered in your head, and they sound a little sharper, a little thinner, a little more nasally because of that, you know, peak there and a little bit there too. And KZ just takes a little more natural, relaxed path through it, and you can turn it up because to get away from the recessed mids, you turn it up a little bit, and all that doesn't really pop out of place where it does so on KE-S. So the rest of it, it probably doesn't matter because the KE-S kind of, you know, didn't really hit this right, and that gets in the way of hearing the air and the extension out there, whereas DQS actually relaxed everything, and you actually get a nice bit of sense of upper treble there and stage, and everything just kind of falls in place. So I would say like KE-S was actually right there. It was really, really close. They just had to tweak a couple things, and it would have been a very, very nice set. Instead, it's a $10 fun set. So that is what I got on KE-S. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.